So I'd like to call the Upper Darby Police Pension Fund quarterly October meeting, October 15th, 2021 to order. And then the first order of business on the agenda is investment reports.
Morning, everyone. Screen here. So far, year to date, things continue as they did for the previous 2 years. We have the stock market outperforming the bond market by a considerable amount. So when the most important decision, 90% of your return is attributed to the allocation, that initial decision years ago to lean more towards equities, that 70% allocation to equities is probably the most important decision we made as a team into 2021 pretty significantly, because year to date the plan's up 8.36%. The total bond market is down about 1.6. The total stock market's up about 11. So there's been a lot more return attributed to stocks versus bonds. So having a bias of 10% more than most pension plans across the country has significantly helped performance, not just for 2021, but for 2020 and 2019, which was the last valuation, and certainly since inception. Since inception, pension performance up 8.89, total market up around 9.7, and bond market up 3.23. So the most significant advantage on the performance side has been due to a higher bias towards equities. We also did shorten the duration on the bond portfolio. So almost look at that like owning shorter term CDs in a way. So when interest rates did go up, causing some volatility in the third quarter, those strategic moves we made in the first quarter by shorting the duration on the bond portfolio, as interest rates went up, our bond position didn't get hit as hard as the overall bond market. So you see the overall bond market so far this year is down 1.6%. Most retail investors across the country don't realize bonds can lose money, believe it or not. And as interest rates do rise, it just makes sense. If folks can make a higher return by owning the same bonds today than they could, say, 6 months ago, the bonds that were purchased 6 months ago are worth less, and certainly 10 years ago are worth less. So the cool thing is that change in shorting the duration, we're almost flat. Here, if you could see the screen where it says bonds total, where my arrow is down negative 0.11%, that's almost zero compared to that overall bond market being down 1.6. That's 1.5% above the bond benchmark, and it's harder to beat the bond benchmark than it is the stock benchmark. And our equity position, owning the entire marketplace, leaning towards small and mid cap, rebalancing, and having less exposure internationally, is also gone in our favor so far in 2021. So that stock performance was up 12.57. To give us an overall year-to-date performance of 8.36. We do believe eventually the market will correct, and I'm going to use this opportunity, like I do almost every quarter, to show why investors across the country should expect at least a 10% correction each year. Because on average, the S&P 500 has had an intra-year drop or a negative return sometime throughout the year of about negative 14%. But 3/4 of the time, the stock market will end the year positive. So if we look at 2020, stock market was down about 34%. we took that opportunity as a buying opportunity. We rebalanced on April 8th and bought the stock market at about a 34% discount. But what I'm trying to show here is we do over 100 municipal pension plans, and everybody keeps asking me, market's so volatile, when's the market going to correct? Well, we should expect it to correct every single year. And what we will do is we'll take advantage of it. We've only seen about a 5% downturn so far this year, has been the biggest downturn that we've seen in 2021. And we might not see one until maybe year end or into next year, but it shouldn't be a surprise is what I'm trying to say. And we will take advantage of it. We would sell bonds and buy stocks, or what we've always done, whatever asset class is down, we're going to buy it cheap. So we'll continue to take advantage of that. Things have gone pretty well just in October so far. The total return so far year to date as of yesterday's close is positive 10.5%. So the police pension plan as of yesterday's close is up 10.5% for 2021. So I'm knocking on wood now because the assumed interest rate is 7.25. The goal over the short run is try to hit 7.25 multiplied by 2 for a 2-year period for the next valuation. But obviously the last valuation, the performance was a significant positive impact. With over almost a 15.5% return last year and over 20% the previous year. That's helped out considerably. Certain things that we do see, short term, we've benefited from inflation because that's why we expected inflation to be an issue due to lack of supply and demand increasing with the pandemic. We do think that's going to continue into the second half of 2022. We benefited from the decisions to lower the duration in the bond portfolio because we thought there was going to be a lack of supply. We're not real fearful of inflation running away, mainly due to the fact that technology is tampering down inflation. But we do think you are going to see interest rates continue to rise with the Federal Reserve starting to taper in November. They're also probably going to raise interest rates in the beginning of 2022. Historically, that's all led to higher interest rates, which will mean our strategic move early this year to lower the duration of the bond portfolio will continue to be a positive to the pension plan. On the equity side, we've leaned more towards small and mid-cap stocks, normally towards the tail end of a recovery. You'll see small and mid-cap overperform. They've typically overperformed historically anyway. So far year to date, that wasn't the case in the third quarter, but certainly was the case so far year to date if you look back since yesterday. So we're thrilled with where things are. We still think there's going to be a significant advantage to having a stronger bias to equities. Now, over the short run, as I showed in this slide, it's going to be important to continue to have a conviction every single year because the stock market is obviously more volatile than the bond market, but that's paid off significantly for the police pension plan in Upper Darby, which has led to better than average performance when you take a look at public pension plans across the country. So we're going to continue with that bias. We will review capital market assumptions in January. For us, that's the coolest meeting. I know for some of you guys, it might not be the coolest meeting, but it at least shows where we go over what we expect the capital market assumptions and what the performance should be in the future. And again, over 1 year, we look like weathermen. It's extremely hard to predict what's going to happen over 1 year, but over a 10-year and a 20-year period, we've been really, really good at making projections and showing you where we're going to be. So with that, I'll kind of open it up to, are there any questions or comments?
I don't have anything.
Yeah, I had a question, Mike, because I was gonna ask if you bring it up about because all you hear on the news is about the inflation and possible more inflation to come. You said we've been protected by technology. What's that mean?
What's happened is with what's helped dampen inflation is technology through productivity. So the biggest example of this is the pandemic. I think, was that Jeff who asked the question? Well, anyway,
Yes.
great question. Because that's probably the biggest question that's being asked in the investment world today. What's going to happen with
Yes.
interest rates and inflation? So technology has helped lower inflation because if you take a look, they before the pandemic, they said the US worker couldn't get any more productive, right? Then the pandemic hit and you see Zoom meetings and technology, and we got even more productive. We were able to do more, which helped keep inflation down. If you're able to go into a McDonald's and order your stuff online and do it faster and quicker than you could 6 months ago, that keeps inflation down. When the supply, however, Jeff, when we can't get wood and ships are stuck in docks and we can't get supplies off the docks, that increases inflation for a short period of time until we get enough workers and enough technology to get that off, the docks. And what's happened for what we thought was going to happen, which came true, is when the pandemic started to subside, we thought, our research was showing that although people wanted to build things, they weren't going to have the wood and the timber and the things to do so, which would increase prices, because if there's a limited amount of timber, that price is going to go up, right? So that's what we believe is causing most of the inflation now, which will subside once we start to get this stuff off the docks and out of the ports. Technology is also helping that, because if we can do it faster and better, then the cost comes down. So because there's been this supply squish, technology is amping up to make us more productive. So when there's no longer a supply problem, we'll be better and faster at it. And that's what I meant.
Okay. It's Jeff again. Do we have any serious concerns about our investments as far as future inflation that could be coming our way? How could that affect us or hurt us?
Yeah, which is why, inflation, we definitely do, we do think, even the Federal Reserve this morning, they're forecasting that they're going to start tapering, buying, less government debt and raising interest rates towards the beginning of the year. And they're forecasting that over and over to let people know, because they do think inflation could be a problem into the first half of the year, Jeff. And that's why we made the decisions we did on the bond portfolio. What I reviewed in the beginning of the report, the bonds, the total bond market is down 1.6, negative 1.6, and you guys are flat. That was due to us thinking that inflation was going to be a problem and continue to be a problem. So when you have 1.5% better performance than the bond benchmark, when the yield is negative, that's a pretty significant over performance. But that's because we did what we thought we needed to do to help protect against inflation. Now, on the equity side, inflation also becomes a drag, but we still think you're going to be rewarded more for stocks over bonds, because interest rates go up in an inflationary environment, which normally leads to a negative impact on bonds. So everything that we're doing is as what we see best to target against short-term inflation.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions for Mike? Okay, if nobody else has any questions. Dave Reed?
Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, Dave. Good
Okay.
morning.
Morning, Dave.
So I wanted to just take us through, we're really, from an actuarial standpoint, pretty much done for the year. We had covered actuarial reports in prior meetings. We had issued budget information for 2022 to the township in August and September. One of the only other agenda items I can see coming forward is, I think we need to revisit the COLA discussion that we had, because remember, we have one current pension recipient who, based on the date that that person was hired, would be eligible for a COLA leading into 2022. And the plan document specifies that it looks to the consumer price index, but that's about as detailed as it gets. We're a little bit more used to seeing a specific reference and maybe a month of reference. For example, if you base it purely on calendar year CPI, we won't know that information until we're already into the next year, where we would like to see, or potentially would recommend, referencing September or October, so that you have a 12-month period, but you have that information in advance of the January pension payment. And I think we had talked about this, I don't remember if it was this summer or if we had talked about it late last year, but I don't think we've come to a resolution on what you would like us to use as a reference point to determine those COLA calculations. Again, it's only one person right now. It's only for our plan participants who were hired after 2000. And this was the former superintendent, because of his age, was hired after that date and is now a pension recipient. And everything I see indicates that he's now been retired for more than 6 months and would be eligible for a COLA at 1/1/2022.
Have you dealt with this in the past with other participants, or is this just the first participant?
This is the first one because of you need 25 years to retire, and it's only for folks hired after 2000. So we're getting there, but we've only got one.
Yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say, from my perspective, I think that's right. You just pick a month or a date.
Right, and because we have no precedent, that discretion doesn't lie with me. Clearly, in keeping with something that's administratively practicable, it would be nice to have a reference that ends on a month, so we can calculate those going forward, and then you're ready to go on January 1st with that first payment. I've got one client that has a really strange reference, and they have to do retroactive payments. And I think if we can avoid that, I would imagine everybody would want to.
Yeah, we, on our end, because we pay the pensioners, in other cases where you just stated, David, we have to pay a retro. And it just becomes a little cloudy versus hitting the COLA from day one.
And the second point of that, not only would it be, I think, prudent to document that, and we'll use that going forward, especially as we get into the retirement of people hired after that date, would be, do we want to get granular with, there are many consumer price index tables. You can do a very broad-based one, which really handles the entire country. You can get geographically specific, like Philadelphia urban wage earners. You can really drill down. Your plan document specific just says the CPI for the year. So I think we have an opportunity to kind of set our direction that we want to go here. And I wanted to bring that up before we get into November, December, January, and we're playing a little bit of catch up. We don't want to do that if we can avoid it.
Okay. Is there some action we need to take today?
My 2 cents is, if you're going to pick something to do today, that we document that in the minutes of the meeting. And then in the long run, you're probably overdue for a plan document rewrite. And then whenever you do rewrite the plan document, I would just put in what specific CPI you're going to use. But for now, I think if you make a decision, I would just document that.
And I always hate to muddy the water. Is there anything here that's going to run afoul of collective bargaining? I would hope not, but it's in there. It's just a matter of what we use. And I just don't want anyone to have problems by thinking we made a decision that adversely affected someone. We're just purely trying to get ahead of the curve.
I'm opening the union agreement now to see if there's anything in there. I doubt it, but I'll take a look.
Dave, do you have a sense of if we chose one CPI versus another, what the difference would be? Like, what's the difference between the national CPI versus the, Philadelphia Urban Wage Earner CPI?
I will look into that. I don't think it's significant. Kevin, the one that we just did, does that one, that's the broad-based CPI?
Yes.
And that one, that references October. And for that 12-month period, that was the largest increase we had seen in quite a while. It was like 5.4%. And I know Social Security is on track for 5.9 leading into 2022. So that holds water. That again, I'm assuming the Social Security number is a very broad-based number. So they may just be looking at a different time frame than we are. So no, if we wanted me to do a little bit of analysis, a localized CPI versus a national one, I can do that pretty easily and then distribute it to the group.
Yeah, I would think we would. And obviously not just in this 1 year where we're seeing like a really high, but if we were to look at it over, a reasonable period of time, the last, let's say 5 years or something, so you get pandemic, like how much have they differed?
We can do
Yeah,
that.
and I guess the other question I would have, Dave, then is my recollection is that not all of the CPI tables are available for all of the same date points, right? So, right, not all of the CPI tables are published at the same frequency. Do I recall that correctly?
I don't know off the top of my head. The ones
Okay.
that we use typically
Okay.
are available at the same time.
Okay. Because I was going to say, would that affect, what we, depending on what CPI we choose, would that affect what period of time?
I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think so.
And is there something that we should be thinking about in terms of the time period that we pick? I mean, I assume whatever we do, we're going to look at the seasonally adjusted anyway. We wouldn't look at the non-seasonally adjusted numbers.
We have not drilled down, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, to that level of detail. And again, it's because some of our other plans are more specific with their requirements. It's you open the plan document and it's there as to what you're to use. We can certainly look at that, but we're capturing a 12-month period, so I don't know if seasonal adjustment would carry weight in that measurement or not. We're not looking at 1 quarter. We're looking at an annual figure.
Yeah, and the collective bargaining agreement, I'm just reading from it, it just says the normal retirement benefit shall be increased as the cost of living increases in an amount equal to the percentage increase in the consumer price index from the year in which the member last worked. So if you use the year in which the member last worked, but then there's no mention of how you determine.
Right. There's no mention as to your starting and stopping points.
Right, and I think this is what Shannon was saying. If you pick September, for example, that means next year you're going to pick September, so it'll always be 12 months going forward.
Right.
Right. But we want to pick a fix. We don't want to make it based on the retirement date, I assume. We want to, I assume it would, or
Right.
I guess that's another option, right? You just pick, but I assume you would just want to fix.
X600 does have some overrides in there. So if your COLA has some limitations. It can't just be CPI forever. You're limited to an overall increase of, I think in this plan, 24% to get you from 50% of compensation to 62%. And then Act 600 has further limitations. And there's a little bit of a limit on how fast it can escalate. So yes, you can get to 24%, but you can't do it over 3 years. you need to tie back to their retirement date and look at those increases from there. But again, there's no reference as to what CPI table to look to. So if since 12/1/19, which is when this person retired, the overall increase up to 1/1/22 was only 3%, well, then he can't get 5.4 right out of the gate. We do that behind the scenes for you to tell you that, but the whole goal was just to know what should I reference to even start with. That's where that's kind of where we're at. What tables do we look at? Broad-based, regionally specific, you name it.
So real quick, and Jeff, I think, agrees with me. This kind of came on as a little bit of surprise with how this was getting worked out with the last superintendent. Our goal in the future is, obviously, we don't come across this again. That if it is somebody that is going to hold a position such as superintendent, that they're aware that they will not be eligible for the same retirement, or if they leave, they're not eligible to collect until they would hit that superannuation date. And that's something that we would have to work out, obviously between the union and the township, that if somebody's only here 8-9 years, it shouldn't affect our plan, that they're aware they will not be eligible to collect until that date, whether it be 25 years. This kind of got thrown on me and Jeff when that retirement happened, is who was aware that they couldn't collect, was it explained properly to the pensioner? So we anticipate that to not happen again, and it stays just at this one person.
Yeah, and I think the way that ordinance was crafted, you'd have to have some, the allowance for him to retire immediately was crafted in such a way that it was obviously him without naming him.
Right.
And it's just brought to my attention, we believe there may have been an ordinance done after.
Yeah, I have a copy of it if anybody
Okay.
wants to see it.
Okay.
The township executive at the time, they pushed for the ordinance change, and I don't think, is it affecting the plan? I thought the township was on the hook more or less for making the difference.
There was a liability increase to the plan as a result of that. That was part of the analysis I think I was asked to do back in the second half of 2019 when this kind of crept up.
Okay.
So Dave, you guys are going to look at whether there's been a meaningful difference between a broad-based CPI and a regional CPI,
Sure.
so that we can then pick, and that's the only decision that you need from us, or you also need a decision related to the date issue?
Yeah, the reference month, and when I communicate that to you, I would recommend we have more than one client that references October. Or is it September or October, Kevin? It's either September or October as a reference month, and that gives us time to calculate that, communicate it to, the people that are administering the plan on a day-to-day basis, and they can get to any kind of changes to the monthly payments. That we're lucky that we only have to do that for one person this time. But once 5-10 years down the road, we're going to have a fair number of retirees that we're going to be analyzing this for every given year.
Okay.
Dave, you may say this is too hard administratively, but could you do it for every retiree in the month that they retired, and then always just do the next 12 months?
You can definitely do that. I never advocate for adding complexity. You operate on a plan year. I like to keep things simple and repeatable. It's easy for us to do that kind of math, but then you really want those increases to either take effect on every calendar year anniversary versus every 12-month anniversary of when someone retired. You'll be calculating COLAs all year long.
Right.
Right. I have a quick question, and I apologize if I'm not following it correctly, but I thought I heard Detective Thompson say that it was their goal that this would apply only to the one retiree, But Dave, I hear you saying as time goes on, it will apply to more and more retirees. And I'm just trying to understand the
Sure.
difference between what Detective Thompson is saying and what you're saying.
No, good stuff. The plan, so for any officer in the plan hired pre-2001, there is currently no COLA available. They receive, their pension benefit is based on 62% of average compensation. The plan was amended coincident with changes in Act 600, effective for anyone hired 2001 or later. They are eligible for a COLA that will ultimately get them from 50% of compensation up to 62. So the person that we're talking about was hired post 2000. And one moment, pre 2001, it's 50% of compensation, but your superannuation date is a age plus service point based number.
Sure.
So it's that we call it magic 77. So age and service of 77 or higher.
Sure.
So the decision with this participant, although he was hired after 2000, was to recognize his age and service and qualify him for immediate commencement of pension that he had earned up through 12/1/19. But the COLA provision is purely based on when you were hired, not whether you got a magic 77 retirement versus a non-magic 77 retirement. So that's why we have to talk about him today. So for those hired 2001 and on, 50% of pay with a COLA, and it's purely based on having 25 years of service, not an age and service point-based system.
I see. So Detective Thompson is saying he will be the only one who's allowed to circumvent the provision, but
Right.
over time, I see. And I will compliment you. That was a wonderful series of euphemisms that you threw out there. You've got a future as a political communications director if you ever want to stop being an actuary. So that was very generous on your part. But I get it now. Thank you.
No problem. You're not going to see me on any ballots. I can tell you that right now. So that was really the item I think we had for discussion today. In terms of calendar of workflow, we really are largely done, with the exception of if anyone, we have retirement calculations to do, we usually will handle those and jump all over them when they come through. And then heading into calendar year end, it'll obviously be GASB time, and we'll have conversations as needed surrounding any kind of assumptions. I don't anticipate a lot of changes, but we'll wait to have that conversation once we get capital market assumptions, and really those conversations will be with our team and with Vince and his finance administration team. It is calendar 2022 will not be a valuation year, but we still do annual benefit statements, retirement calculations as they come through. I don't think I think we're through bargaining. I don't think, do we have a finalized contract?
No, not
Okay.
yet. Yeah. So there'll be some retroactive. Yeah.
We're at the ready when those come through. And if you have discussion, times that you need calls or whatever, we'll be ready. That's really all we had, unless there's questions on anything else for us.
So Dave, do you need an answer from us before the next meeting in order to avoid having to do this retro?
Yeah, but we have, it's one person. So even if we get into December and we decide, hey, Dave, use this, we can calculate that very, very quickly and get that over to the township and to Jen at the INR office and process any change to that monthly payment for him. If it's got to be retro this time because of timing, a lot goes on in Q4. I know we can. So we're going to get you that analysis right away.
Okay.
And then if you want me to, I'll write in a recommendation and say, I can't recommend what specific table to use. That'll be your decision. But I can say, let's try to have the gift of time leading into a 1/1 and say, use this as a reference point so we know what those numbers are well in advance, process changes. Like, again, processing one is no big deal. We've got some clients clearly that have a lot of retirees that get COLAs. So we want to give people that are making those manual changes to payments the time to do that correctly so we avoid errors.
Okay, so Rob, when we get that, can we just do a resolution via,
Yep.
do we do this as a resolution via email so that we can do this and avoid everybody having to do retro, which is just extra work?
Yeah, I'll send a consent around once we get it.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Dave Reed? Excuse me. We're going to authorize the following. Payment to CBiz INR for actual valuation, benefit statement and benefit calculations in the amount of $7,325.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Could we make an amendment? That's my bad from the last agenda for Cozen and O'Connor. It should be through September 30th.
Okay.
All right, so I'd like to make an amendment to that.
Where it says March 31. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay. Change that to what?
yes, please.
To
Sorry
what?
about that.
With the what
Yes,
date?
it's for the third quarter, but it should be through September 30th, correct, Rob?
Yep, that's right.
For our Q3 invoices are not done. That was an invoice that we had submitted back in July.
Okay. Is that paid?
Yes.
Okay. Payment to Cozen O'Connor for professional services, attorney fees through September 30th, 2021 for $4,830. Payment to 21st Media for public notice and advertisements for special meetings in August and September in the amount of $61.15 and $64.01. And payment to Kara M. Gavin for secretarial services for the fourth quarter of 2021 at $350 per quarter. And if I could get a motion to pay a second on that for the authorization on those.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Ayes have it. The next, we acknowledge the passing of members Raymond Grizel on September 21st, and the passing of our dear friend Hal Parsons on October 5th. Does anybody have anything for discussion?
The only item I have is CBiz presented you with an updated service agreement, which is largely the same as the current services agreement you have, but reflects the lower basis point fee as part of the RFP, and it's retroactive to July 1st.
It's retroactive till July, and it's good till.
It's open-ended until it's further negotiated or terminated.
Okay.
And I should mention there is no minimum period of time, so you could theoretically terminate it at any time going forward.
Okay. Thank you for putting that on the record.
Yep. And I think your move here is to have a motion to have the trustees approve that agreement and then direct you or one of the other trustees to just sign it on behalf of all of the trustees.
So we need to make a motion to do what? To approve
To
that?
have it adopt, essentially to approve the agreement and have it adopt.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the updated agreement with the updated fee schedule. Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Ayes have it. Is sufficient, Rob?
Yep, and then Jeff, that'll give you the power to just sign it. I'll send you a copy that'll let you sign it and return it.
Okay.
And I apologize. I just wanted to jump in quickly. I had to hop off for a second and take a phone call. I did want to express on behalf of myself and the mayor and the entire administration our sincere condolences to Hal Parsons' family. He served for a very long time with the Upper Darby Police Department, and he was a well-loved character in the community and the department, from my understanding. I did not have the opportunity to serve with him, but from everyone I have heard, he was quite a guy and had recently retired. And so I did want to make special mention of Hal Parsons and express our sincere condolences to his family.
We thank you very much for that. Yeah, he was a special character to us.
Yeah.
And we miss him. So, anything else for discussion? Old business? Jeffrey. I'm on a Zoom meeting. Sorry. Nothing under old business. New business. We have a request from Attorney Skip Miller. Came over for Lance Simpson. Rob, do you have any, and Dave, do you have anything to say as to that?
So, and Dave, you may have more details on this. This was a participant who at the time, I think at the time of his termination, elected to wait until 2027 to receive a distribution, and now wants a retroactive retirement to 2020. But I think the issue, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that he's saying that that's in an arbitration award, but on follow-up, I think that award has not yet been issued, right? So I think you have to wait to see what's in the arbitration award before moving forward.
So it wouldn't be effective under what's going on with the current CBA, Rob?
Is there something in the CBA that'll change when benefits can commence? Meaning, are you negotiating a change to when someone can retire and start taking benefits?
Yes.
I actually think it is part of a settlement and or a settlement of an arbitration, but I believe that is complete. I mean, I believe that our attorneys and or Skip Miller should be able to send you a signed settlement agreement. So that should.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think there might just be some paperwork that needs to exchange hands in order to get this complete. Because if you have a completed agreement, then we're good to go. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I just want to see what's in it. So I got a request.
Agreed. So do I.
What's that? I
said agreed. So do I. I want to see what's in it.
Yeah, I got a request that says per the agreement, this is what happens, but I haven't actually seen the agreement.
Oh, yeah. So, Jeff, I mean, if you ask Skip to send the agreement, I can also ask our attorney to send the agreement, and then whoever gets it first, we just forward it to the group here. Because, I mean, this is one of those things that's been going on for years, and it's finally resolved. So we should just move the paperwork where it needs to go. Yeah.
Okay.
What agreement specifically? The one that Skip Miller has?
Yeah, it's an agreement to settle the Simpson arbitration, the Simpson grievance, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it's the agreement that Skip references in the email, right? Per the agreement.
Not in it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
on that.
Jeff, can I raise one other thing?
Sure.
So Rob mentioned this idea that we could use an updated plan document, and this has come up a couple of times, but I think we probably should formally authorize Rob to draft one. I think it's come up a few times that the plan document maybe not, let's say, consistent with the CBA or other things that are happening. It hasn't been updated, but I think we should formally authorize Rob to do an updated plan document that we can then adopt.
Rob, is that what we need?
Sure. Yeah, I can get started on it for the winter.
Would you like to make a motion, Sharon?
Yes, so I move that we authorize the board's attorney to draft an updated plan document for the consideration of the trustees at a future meeting.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
No one's opposed. The ayes have it. Motion's approved.
thank you.
Thanks, guys. I'll take a look.
Thank you, Shannon. Anything else for new business? Just check my phone, make sure I'm not. Yeah. Well, if there's no other business.
I have, sorry, we do have to, we have to make, for 2022, our new
Schedule.
for meetings upcoming for the 2022 year.
Okay,
We have for some dates, so I should be more. So our next one, I mean, usually we do it in January.
mm-hmm,
We've kind of been playing around with the months too, to kind of make more sense instead of like
Right.
going past, you know what I mean? So do we still want to keep January? Is February better, or like, because it seems like we kind of play around with that.
they're both good for me, so let's ask the professionals.
Right.
Shannon, John, do you guys have preferences?
No.
No, I think it doesn't really matter.
Mm.
Okay.
I mean,
I just gonna advertise it. And I just don't want to keep, you know what I mean, changing it. And I'm also talking about the advisors too.
yeah,
Like-
I'm wondering, Mike and Dave, if there's a reason to do one versus the other.
No, we're okay with whatever's comfortable for you guys, Shannon.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. Dave may have a reason from his perspective, but I don't have one from mine.
No, dude.
All right. Well, I'm going to pick one. So, I'm looking here, we have, I mean, the 14th, 21st, 28th, they're all Fridays. So,
January 14th is better for me than the others, so I would go with that.
all right.
Tom, I assume you have nothing blocked out this far in advance, right?
Not right now. I
Okay.
don't know if anybody plans on committing any crimes that I'll be in a
Right.
trial that day. but fingers crossed.
Just
I
tell
mean, what I
people they're
can
not
do-
allowed.
Yeah, I'm
If
booked
you want
that
to
day.
announce it right now.
Are we supposed to tell you in advance?
Yeah.
Some would believe so.
If you want, because I don't want to hold up everyone's time, I have time to advertise this,
Okay.
so I can go through and I can throw out some dates and do it
All
that
right.
way if you prefer. By email, or we can do it today. It doesn't matter to me.
Email's fine. And then Tom
Okay.
has to take the court.
All right, that way it gives you guys time to look through and we'll sort it out.
Sounds good.
All right,
All right.
thank you.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 The meeting is
Have a good weekend all.
Thank you. Everybody take care.
Thank you,
everybody.
sir.